Is craft beer more about just the beer itself, or is it about the community you brew it in and the people that are drinking it? And to me, it's both equally. That's where my mind is at when I'm behind the mash paddle or the brew kettle. It's, are we doing things in a sanitary, timely manner? And then once that's going and the beer's fermenting and all that work's done, and we get to open up our doors for the tasting room, then you see, oh, this is why we care so much about the craft. So we can bless the community with the beer that they want to drink. My name's Josh Hamilton, and I'm 30 years old. I'm married to the girl of my dreams, Kristen Hamilton, and we have 2 beautiful kids. What does family mean to me? That's a great question, because it's more than just like your blood relatives. To me, I have very dear friends that we're not related, but they feel like family. So family are people that you're committed to, in a sense, and they're committed back to you regardless. There's no strings attached. You know, there's a love that's deeper than what you just get out of the relationship, but you know, you're gonna be there for those people and they're gonna be there for you. And so having a family can, it can just be close friends to you, and that's it's important. It's very important. And what family you're a part of and who you choose to be around, it can really impact your life in positive ways.
My name is Kristen Hamilton, and I am co-owner here at Hamilton Family Brewery in Rancho Cucamonga. I am 29 years old, and I have 2 beautiful babies. Natalie is 3 and Noah is 1.5. So family has a lot of meanings to me. For me, family is anyone that we do life with, which can mean obviously my blood family, but it also means community. As far as community goes, even here at the brewery, we consider our customers family, and we want to treat them like family and encourage that amongst our customers also.
My role at Hamilton Family Brewery, it's kind of a long list, but it's all stuff that I couldn't do without the support of my friends and my family and other people. So what I'm responsible for here is I brew, so I'm the brewmaster coming up with recipes. There's a little bit of branding I do, like in terms of naming the beer and making label designs or drawings for the beer to kind of capture the spirit of what's behind the brew. In terms of building the place, I was a painter, amateur carpenter, very amateur furniture maker, an amateur real estate agent in terms of just looking for the place. So there's many hats I wear here that all just kind of are on the making things end, and then my wife gets to tie it all together and make sure it's all nice and legal and the paperwork's filed and stuff. So I kind of get to be a bull in a china shop and make beer and all that and move heavy things around and to get water all over the place. And there's a lot of answers to that question. I'm sure there's roles I have that I don't even know yet, that just things pop up. So I do a lot here, but I love it. So it doesn't even feel like a job or anything. It's something I'm glad to do. So
me specifically, I do all of the paperwork, all the back of the house office stuff I take care of all the emails, all the social media, all of our marketing. I do tasting room scheduling. I handle all of our employees, donations and vendors and events and just that type of thing. And whenever one of our employees isn't able to work, then I fill in for that.
For me, the idea to start the brewery happened before I even brewed. I always kind of been a do-it-yourselfer. So one day, my wife and I are at coffee with our little girl, and we're sitting there and we meet a family that just moved into the area from DC. And through talking and getting to know them over the past couple of weeks, turns out the husband was a home brewer and had been for years. So he had me come over one day and help him bottle a stout he was working on. And I thought it was the coolest thing. Didn't even brew beer, just bottled it at that point. He let me take a book home called The Complete Joy of Homebrewing by Charlie Papazian. And that book changed the trajectory of my career, I would say, my life in one sense. It was about halfway through there reading that book when I realized the different variety of grain and hops that are out there, and then yeast and water profile you can have. There's really no limit in terms of the creative side to the beer you can brew. You never have to brew the same beer twice. You can tweak a few things, and for me, being a creative guy, that blew me away, because up to that point, my knowledge of beer was like light beer, dark beer, and wheat beer. And that's all I kind of danced around. But through reading that book and talking to other brewers and other beer enthusiasts, opened my eyes, I could walk down a beer aisle, Total Wine, and just pull random bottles and go home and try some and fall in love, and then try others and not. My idea of craft beer is, there's a few, like I would say, technical parameters I try and keep in, and that's your ingredients. I don't want to use any extracts or flavor additives that aren't natural. But I like to be creative with beer, so we do put fruit in beer here, but we'll use the real fruit, or we get juices that are just the fruit, no mixtures, no sugar added. So we try and make beer with the best possible ingredients, so it's a real art. So that makes it more of a skill. You know, it'd be a lot easier for us to do our watermelon beer with just a little vial of watermelon flavoring and put a couple drops in it, and there you go. And it tastes like Jolly Ranchers. But no, we take 20 large watermelons, cut them up and puree all the flesh of that, and then we add that in the beer. And it takes time, but it makes a damn good beer. So here our beer starts with the recipe, and one of the main approaches I have when I go to a recipe is this beer we're creating something that I'm going to want to drink again? So that philosophy comes in when we're thinking about the style of beer and how we're going to brew it. So once we have a recipe down in terms of the alcohol in the beer, the bitterness of the beer, the flavors we're trying to achieve, then we start with the ingredients. So we always start with our barley, and we'll weigh that out, and then we start milling it up in our grain mill, and that's going to crack open the husk and expose all this protein and starches that we're trying to convert into sugar. We're going to take that crushed barley and we're going to add it to our mash tun, which is like a big vessel that houses a bunch of warm water. And depending on the temperature of that water when the grain goes in, that'll dictate the temperature that the grain sits at for the next hour, which will in turn affect the type of sugar we create. So that process is very important, because if we have very complex sugars, the yeast can't get at it. And that sugar and that sweetness will stay in the beer, adding body, so you'll feel like you have a thicker, sweeter beer. So once that's done, we run it off. We start sparging, where we add more water to the top and run it through the grain, and we collect all that, we call it wort, and we bring it into our next kettle, the boil kettle. That's where we'll heat it all up to a boil, and depending on the beer, it's going to boil anywhere from 90 to 60 minutes, and during that time is when we add our ingredients, whether it's the hops for bittering or hops for flavor and aroma, depending on the beer we're brewing. And that process is about an hour. When it's over, the next thing is to chill that down, because we want to add yeast, and yeast is a living organism. If we throw it into boiling hot liquid, just like anything else, we'll kill it. So we don't want to do that. So we run it through a plate chiller, and it's a cool device that has a bunch of different plates, and beer is on one side and cold water is on the other side of the plate, and they run past each other over and over, and they exchange temperature. So we have hot beer go in, cold beer come out, and then into our fermenting vessel, where it's going to spend the longest part of its life while it's under our care will be in the fermenter. So in there we measure the temperature, because that'll affect the yeast health and the flavors that the yeast produce while they're fermenting. So that process takes about 2 to 4 weeks depending on the beer, and when that's done, the whole fermenter goes into the walk-in, where we're going to chill it. So now that the liquid is beer, it's alcoholic, all the fermentation's there, we chill it so that the yeast drop out of it, and it kind of helps clarify the beer. We'll transfer it from there into our bright tank, which is basically a giant CO2 tank in a sense. That's where the beer goes. We force CO2 into that tank through a stone, which now that the beer is cold, it can absorb that gas, and since it's being forced through a carbonation stone, it diffuses it so it's more readily available. And that process takes us anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes, and then it's carbonated beer. And then from there it goes in the kegs, and from the kegs into your glass, and from our glass into your belly. Those are our goals, and that's our process, and it's simple. To me, it's just like an enlarged version of home brewing, just bigger volumes, and it's really fun. Can be stressful, and it's a lot of work, but at the end you get beer, so I'm not complaining. Selling our home was one of those things that we can look back now and kind of breathe easy and be like, it was totally worth it. But that idea, when I pitched it to my wife, I wasn't even fully confident in it yet. Just threw it out to her as kind of like a, am I going insane type of deal? Like, what do you think about this? That was the house. We bought that 3 months before we got married. Then we got married and she moved in with me. Less than a year later, we got pregnant with our daughter there, brought her home to that house, got pregnant with our son there, brought him home to that house. My daughter learned how to walk in that house. I redid all the landscaping, carried her in. So there's a lot of those memorable moments you have tied to just a couple stuccoed walls, and they were big moments for our family. And so to know that that little house that we cared for so much is what ended up building this brewery that we now care for, it's kind of bittersweet and yeah.
You know, running a business is a lot of work. A lot of people, I think, have the impression that it's fun and we're successful and it's playtime at the brewery. You got to do what you love, which is all true. It's great and it's a fun thing, but it's also so much work. And in that regards, we have to sacrifice a lot. We have to give up our family time. We don't take vacations. I bring the kids here a lot to see their daddy when he has to work late, which is awesome, you know, and I try to keep a good attitude about it because I feel like that could filter back to the kids. If they see mommy upset about something, then they're gonna be upset about it. So Josh and I we're intentional about trying to stay positive and trying to set a good example for our babies.
On our opening day, we sold 11 kegs of beer, which is more than 2 batches of beer that I can make, or right about 2 batches, and it didn't stop. The next week, it was just boom. We were selling that much beer in 3 days consistently, and I couldn't keep up. Sometimes alone, I was here, I think, till I came in at 7 o'clock one morning, was here to 4 o'clock the next morning brewing beers. And so the sacrifice, you put just a lot of labor, a lot of money, and a lot of your time to start this type of business. And then you create this cool place where all those friends and the family you miss get to come hang out with you and finally drink some beer. So it's definitely well worth it.
So community is actually one of our core values as a business. We are all about that. We set up even our tasting room as a community. We have long tables and we encourage people to sit next to someone and talk to your neighbor, talk to your stranger, and make friends with the person next to you. We have board games in here to encourage that, to kind of break the ice.
Yeah, incorporating our city into our beer was really important to me. Aside from brew pubs, which are restaurants that make beer, we are their first production craft brewery that the city's had. So technically we made history when we opened up our doors on June 21st, 2014. The city hadn't had a brewery. They're known for wine and the wineries that kind of founded the city, but not known for beer. So we were the first ones here, and being a Rancho born and raised kid, it was really important to me that we not only showcase that, but we pulled elements of our beloved city into our beer. So beer doesn't drink beer, people drink beer. And what that is to say is that what's beer without someone to enjoy it?
Okay, so some near future goals for the business. We are actually planning on expanding. We're gonna be going next door and we're gonna break down a wall. We're gonna expand our tasting room, hopefully double in size.
We will have a new brew house that will be able to produce 5 times the amount of beer in one shot. So my goal is to get our beer into restaurants and bars. I have a few lofty goals. I want to have our beer at Quake Stadium, and I want to be Rancho's Brewery, Rancho's Beer, definitely, but then I want to go beyond, and I want to get our bottles out there, and I want to get some canned beers. So I have great plans, huge plans. Stuff that if I said now, while we're at a 1,600 square foot warehouse, I would sound like an idiot. But I want to build a destination brewery that you just got to go to see. You know, and I imagine it having a big lake that you can actually ride small boats in and fish off of while drinking our beer on this huge piece of property that we brew the beer on, and you can come and enjoy it. Just create the ultimate scene to showcase how good this beer can be. So yeah, that sounds idiotic for a guy sitting on a bag of grain on a keg in a small warehouse to say, I'm gonna brew the Disneyland of breweries, but that's my goal. I would love to, you know.